You'll rise for
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This evening, we have 4 counselors present. John James will not be here this evening. And our first agenda item is a public hearing for our fiscal year budget, fiscal year 2023 budget. Oh no, I lost my sticky note. No. She wrote something down for me that I lost. For the public hearing, sorry about that.
Hang tight.
I'll go ahead and kick us off though. So this public hearing is regarding our fiscal year 2023 budget. And Jen is getting the total amount for me, thank you, because I don't have it handy. And I think I'll just read that off and see if anyone from the public has any questions. Copies of the budget are available here. Thank you. Sorry about that. Copies of the budget are available here in Town Hall and also online somewhere, right?
Is it online?
Yes, I think it is.
Yeah. It's under, if you go to our website, under budget on the left-hand side, we have the budget available there. So, so our planned budget for fiscal year 2023, sorry, is $8,295,514. And in our support docs for this evening, you can kind of see the breakdown a little bit by department in our warrant. Does anyone have any questions? Anyone from the public have any questions on our budget for 2023? Anyone from the council have any questions or comments, or the manager's office?
Chair, so for the public and for the rest of the council. So again, there shows a 7.14% increase in the expenditure budget, which includes daily expenditures as well as capital improvement items. That 7.14% does not directly reflect a tax increase one way or the other. That's just the actual cost of doing the business. Along with that, we apply the revenues. We look at the county tax, we add that in, we add in the school budget. And we apply back to that revenues that we get, as well as the property valuation, so forth. So this, people tend to get nervous when they see a percent number in a budget like this, but that's just reflective to these numbers. That's not reflective of the tax rate, not reflective to directly how the mill rate set. It's part of it, but it's not all of it inclusive. As I said earlier, and I've been saying to you all along, as we've calculated out spending and revenues, along with property valuation and taxes coming in from that, we believe there'll be if anything, a minimal, 0 to minimal increase in taxes this year. We're hoping to reduce taxes. We have to wait to get, we got the county tax, or did we get the school? We got the school.
Well, the school hasn't been voted on, but we have that number,
We have that number.
and we did just get the county tax
And
number.
we just get the county tax. So we're
Getting-
very hopeful that though this shows an increase, there are some other revenue streams coming in that help us support this. So that this number is not directly reflected to the taxpayers, is what I'm trying to calculate out so that they understand. So lots of times when we say, well, the budget, the expenditure budget shows an increase of 7.14%, people are like, oh, my taxes are going up. No, that's not accurate. The two different worlds they live in completely. So we're hoping this year that we can implement this budget and that there'll be a very little impact. We're hoping, if nothing, to the tax rate, mill rate, because of this. Now, on the other side of that, as Jack will tell us, if your property valuation goes up, your taxes are going to go up. And if you get reevaluated, that's something that happens. But as far as this budget goes, seeing a massive, we shouldn't see, do not anticipate running the numbers that there'll be a major tax increase or any kind of we're trying to maintain a zero balance on this the best we can, the close we can.
So just to summarize, we're expecting an increase in services for this year without an increase in tax rate.
For the most part, yes, based on this.
And that's due to the ARPA funds.
Some of it's ARPA funds, some of it's
revenue.
increased revenue, some of it, so one of the big factors that hit us this past year was the state funding revenue sharing at 5%. So that's, giving us additional revenues. Property valuations, the more people build new homes and the more new homes that come online, the more we get tax income from that. So those things, when you start building, 10, 12 house subdivisions, you start building, you start building 11 condo units, those things begin to have positive impacts in the tax base. So, but I just want to reiterate that, some people might see a tax increase only because their property got reevaluated and their valuation went up. But for the base of the tax, the mill rate, we're looking at trying to keep it as close to the same, a minimal increase. I'm confident of that.
Madam Chair. And I apologize for having this come at you out of the blue. Typically I'd have time, but maybe we can work it out. Just as an example of another factor that contributes to what our overall taxes will be. I did the math, and thank you again for sending out the monthly summary of how we're tracking. Revenues are tracking right now at 75% of this fiscal year, projected out to be a little under 1.5 million. Do you recall, this is a trick question now, do you recall off the top of your head what we budgeted for revenues into this year?
I can look it up for you real quick.
Okay. All right, again, I apologize for putting you on the spot.
No, it's okay.
It just occurred to me that I did the math and I said, oh, we're coming in at that number, so which is kind of close to where we were last year.
Right.
So
All things equal, but it's still 25% to go.
budget is on that report that I sent to you as well. Look at that. So the revenue. Oh, it's not total from that one. Last year's total projected revenue was $3,930,000. That does not include the property taxes. That's just what we were gonna bring in.
Okay, so I think the number I was looking at was probably anticipated excise tax. That might have been
Just the
that.
excise tax.
That might have, I think that was what I was looking at.
The excise tax was budgeted at 1.4 million.
Okay. So it looks like we're gonna be a little bit of a bump on that. So that just kind of amplifies what Tim was talking about as far as these pluses and minuses that we go through.
In the revenue sharing, we only had projected 800,000, and throughout this current fiscal year, it has bumped up to the 5%. So we are higher on that line as well.
Okay.
Significant.
And thank you for doing that.
Of course.
Oh, pronto.
No
She's-
problem.
She's Ace Ventura on the spot. She said it. You thought not.
Any other comments from the council on the budget? All right, last chance, anyone from the public have anything they want to ask related to the budget? All right, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing on the fiscal year 2023 budget. Later on in our agenda, we'll be adopting that, but we'll likely be adopting that budget and sending the warrant to our town budget meeting. All right, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and begin our council meeting. As I mentioned before, we have 4 councilors present. John James is not here this evening. And our first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from our last meeting on the 20th.
Madam Chair, I would move to, well, first of all, I don't see any suggested amendments.
Yeah, neither.
So if that's the case, I'll just move to accept the minutes as written.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None opposed, motion passes 4-0. Thank you. And next we have the treasurer's warrants.
Madam Chair, I would move to sign the treasurer's warrant in the amount of $974,513.08. That's dated April 7, 2022.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
It doesn't include the school payment.
It does include it, right?
Correct.
Okay, sorry. I thought you said doesn't.
No, it does.
It does, yeah. This was a big one because it doesn't include the school payment. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I just had a question in regards to the large sum for Bernstein Sure that shows on in April. I wasn't sure what that was.
That is legal fees.
How much is that?
It was for $8,535.47.
Yeah, that's everything.
Thank you.
That includes personnel issues currently and ongoing.
Yes, so that was for the month of February.
That was for the month of February.
Correct.
There's more coming in March and obviously.
They bill us.
Any other discussion on the warrant? All right, all those in favor of signing the treasurer's warrant, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None opposed, motion passes 4-0. Next item, reports and correspondence. We have the Pease Air Cargo Project. I don't know who is speaking on that. No?
Nope, I got nothing.
Do we have
No.
anyone on Zoom to talk about the Pease Air Cargo Project?
Barbara, you said that, did you guys ask to put that on last meeting? Is that what they did?
Wasn't that you that sent me that? I'll have to go back and look, because somebody asked me to put that on.
All right.
Is that John? Could it have been John at halftime?
I don't know.
No,
Tiffany, did you have something to add on that?
Yes, I can't put on my video right this second. I sent that to Tim to forward to all of you in case you're hearing things from constituents like myself and Representative Meyer were about the proposed project.
Got it. I have heard nothing about this.
I'll check my email. I didn't,
From any
if I got it, I
residents.
didn't see it. I apologize. I'll check my email, and pass it on. to you.
Okay, is there, Tiffany, and does anybody know if there's like a time constraint that we have on this topic? Like, is this something that we could plan to bump to our next agenda?
Yeah, so right now we received a response from Pease, and there will be a lengthy process of hearings and approvals before any project is put forth. And at this time, nothing has been formally presented. There was just news articles that seemed to set some folks abuzz.
Okay. Does anyone have an opinion as to how we should address this item in the future?
I think it's a wait and see kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's just perhaps staff could drop a note to the PDA to keep us informed as to what's going on. We do see an increase in air traffic over downtown. I don't know about other parts of town, but I know that sometimes the flight patterns shift and they fly right over. So,
Mhm.
but it's all military stuff.
I didn't feel like there was anything that we needed to do. I felt like it was good and a good practice for us to be able to at least be aware of
Yeah,
what's happening. But
okay.
good
Given-
job.
That it sounds like it's in relatively early stages. I sort of agree, like, let's wait and see. It's good to know about, and as it kind of comes more together, we can take it up as we need to.
Just as an aside, when the base closure was happening in the Pease Development Authority, you know, repurposing the base and all the rest of it, there was a very large level of interest from towns like Madbury and Rye, who are directly underneath the flight path going and coming. That's right in the glide path, so those towns would be Newington, obviously, but it was perhaps there was something, there is something because of that level of interest.
Mhm.
Yeah, from neighboring communities.
All right, we'll move on to public comment. Is there anyone here that would like to speak about anything that's not on our agenda? All right, looks like we don't have anybody. So town managers report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the council. Before we go on into the report, get everything. I'd like to introduce to you tonight Dan Lancaster. Dan, if you stand up, say hi to the council. If you don't know, he's the head of the transfer station. He's the manager at the transfer station. I told you I'd be bringing by the department heads, and so Dan was hired in July 2020. Jen promoted him in December of 2021 to manager, and he's been doing a super job. Does a really great job. He's very conscientious. And I just wanted to have you come say hi and tell the council kind of your vision for the transfer station. And he's always there. He's dedicated to the core. And he's a great asset to the town as far as the transfer station. So Dan, if you just kind of tell them your vision for the
Yeah,
transfer station.
well, my vision is to keep it going the way it's going. It's been pretty smooth. And we've been doing some upgrades because that old building is kind of rotted and needs some care. So I've been doing those slowly myself, you know. We have a couple of projects with like schools. And, you know, where they'll come in and get plastics to show the kids how to recycle and start them young, you know. And then we also have the road brigade just started up. So they, people get together and clean their road and they can bring it to the transfer station and get rid of it for free if there's any big couches or TVs or anything like that. So we're trying to clean the whole town, not just the transfer station. And that's about it.
Yeah, I'd like to compliment Dan
Yes.
and the whole staff on the great job that you folks do, and just the friendly demeanor of all the staff and getting it done and making it happen with sometimes older equipment and
Thank you.
and
I'll pass
the
it on.
challenges of people getting nervous.
Yeah.
Show up at,
Mm,
11:45 on a Sunday and they expect to be able to get in there without waiting.
Yeah.
Do a great job with that part.
Well, thank you.
Because, this is where, government meets the road, you're a frontline guy, so,
Right.
and the staff, so thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Pass it along.
I will definitely pass it on to the guys.
Well, thank you for coming in, Dan. I appreciate it. Again, I just want to reiterate,
Nice to meet you all.
Dan does a great job and his staff. And we're very fortunate to have him. He's terribly dedicated. He comes in on his days off to meet with Jen and myself. And he's learning his job and he has a lot of good ideas that are innovative. And the staff's really behind him and working. And they just do a good job. Very rarely do I have to, do we have to have anything to say or do about the transfer station. So thankless job. And so in the spirit of meeting our department heads, I wanted to meet Dan. So,
Thank you so
thanks
much
for
for
coming.
coming.
Nice to meet
Thank you,
you all.
Dan.
Thanks for all you
Thank
do.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, have a good night.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So for highway, they started work on Brattle Street, changing the culverts, ditching for drainage and reclaiming, gonna add 2 inches of gravel to improve the road bed. Stormwater basin inspections and cleaning has begun. Street sweeping started this week. Street striping will be done in June. And the new dump truck, the F-750 that we ordered.
Almost a year ago.
Oh, I was gonna say 16 years ago, but we ordered a year ago, it was finally at the plow shop, waiting to get the plow put on in April. Perfect timing. When we get it back, we're gonna do training on
But don't scratch it.
it. Police department, the last 2 weeks has had 5 arrests, 5 accidents, 109 traffic stops. And they had their portable speed sign back out into circulation. Fire department in the last 2 weeks had 10 calls, code enforcement's on vacation. Planning is working on marijuana and solar panel ordinance updates. Library, March, they had 2,619 items borrowed, the highest since COVID. DIY Adventures, Lorna taught patrons how to make yogurt from scratch. They were very pleased how the event went. 181 people attended story time in March. Summer reading program start June 15th, the last day of school at 1 p.m. There'll be live music and activities. Recreation, the Easter hug. Yeah, Easter hug. We all had big Easter hug. The Easter egg hunt went very well. The weather held out. 94 kids showed up and a total of 140 people participated. Police and fire trucks were a big hit with the kids. The benches that were funded by the bond fund have arrived and have been placed out by the basketball court.
Correct.
They look really nice. Easter luncheon for the seniors is tomorrow at the community center at entertainment, I think, starts at 11, lunch is at noon. And I'll be over serving. Assessing meeting with the new mapper next week. We hired a new mapper to help Verna. Updating the database from all the field work that she's been doing over the past few weeks. And she hopes to be done reviewing all the last year's sales by mid-May, so she can get us a property valuation. Finance, he's sending out about 200 reminder notices to people who pass through tax bills. From the town clerk reports that Diane, the deputy clerk, is very eager to become certified in her position. And she's completed the following trainings recently: town meetings and elections, records management, and new clerks training. She's also scheduled for vital records training in the end of April. Good job to Diane, Barbara, for working with her and getting that stuff done. Transfer station, as Dan said, they met, so we've been trying to figure out what to do with how to dispose of broken glass, because there's no place for it to go anymore. So we talked to some other transfer stations. A lot of them have a program running where they'll do bottle recycling, put them in a bin, and then they have a vendor comes and takes the bottles away. We recycle them, we collect the money for them. So we met with Redemption Company out in North Berwick. It goes to the transfer station, North Berwick, picks theirs up. They've had success with that. And we're gonna be starting that May 1st using the old garage that they had there for the, what was that called?
Swap shop.
Swap shop.
Uh-huh.
So the boxes will be down there. So the only bottles now that's gonna be crushed in glass is gonna be like pickles and stuff like that. But anything that we can get money for, it's gonna go down into that barn.
Like beer
Where-
bottles,
What's that?
like beer bottles.
Beer bottles, wine bottles, that's all gonna be recyclable. He'll come get them and he'll write us a check right there and take the bottles. And that money I will use to recycle into employee award program and the employee banquet, picnic and so forth. And that will stop me first. Dan was involved, Jay was involved, me and Ken, we all went up there, met with him and came up with a program. So that'll be good because that'll help us fund that program. So I'm gonna have Jen do the first one, so do the admin, explain to him about the new vendor and
Oh,
the,
sure.
because Jess will like this one.
Two-way communications has always been strong about keeping our website and our server secured. And then especially once everything happened with Russia and whatnot, he really came out with, hey, now's the time to do it. So we did. We jumped on that bandwagon and got that rolling sooner than waiting until the new fiscal year. And we actually got an email last week that there was someone using our server and they were using it to, there's no damage done. They were blocked, but they were mining cryptocurrency. through our server. So they were blocked and whatnot, and so we're gonna get the police on board with their server with this same, protection and, but because we have such a hard watch on it now, they knew that was happening. Otherwise, they wouldn't have.
So in fact,
Yeah, sorry, Jessica.
so go ahead.
Following up on that, I'm hearing a lot more about dual factor authentication
Yes.
for emails and even texts, I guess. Vulnerable. We gonna be going that way as far as the town email?
We do, and we have to remote in to our server, like, when I remote into my computer from here on this, it's too,
You get a text message or something.
yeah, I get an email that I have to go to a portal, and
Yeah.
it's quite a, but
Yeah.
it keeps us more secure.
Okay, so
And then there's some-
nothing's on the horizon for us then.
Internally, we do have, our computers are all locked. But there's not another level of security at that point.
Okay.
So that money was, that the ARPA money we used for that?
For next year, yeah.
Yeah, that was the ARPA money we used to approve, so it was a great success, exactly what we needed to do, we did, we caught it just in the nick of time and it worked, so. The pedestrian street light out here in front of the town hall has been upgraded and repaired. We should have less downtime moving forward. Little yellow piece of paper. We've implemented a new customer service survey in the clerk's office and the assessment code office. Gonna see how this goes, and, we'll be putting that up on a new website. We're trying to figure out, we always hear the negative complaints. We know when somebody's not happy, we find out immediately. But I want to try to find out about the good service too, and reward the employees for that. So this is part of that. So this way here, people can come in, they take this, they can leave, they can go home, and on their computers, they can anonymously send an email to, or not anonymously, but they can just send an email to Dawn saying, I had a good service or I had a bad service. And at the same time, if this starts to work, then we're gonna connect something like this to our new website so that people can go in and, hey, if you've had a good interaction with one of our employees, please tell us about it. And, if you've had service that you're not happy with, please tell us about it. So the only way we'll ever know is if we're doing a good job or a bad job is just to ask and be in here. So,
So there'll be almost like a link or something on our new website where people can submit that there.
right. Well, there'll be a thing they can click on and send it right in. And so we're really excited about that. It's again, I always hear the negative. If somebody screws up, somebody's done something wrong, I get that phone call, that email. I don't get the ones that say, this person went above and beyond and really, helped me, one of the people at the transfer station helped an elderly lady get a bag out of her car, trash bag, and throw it in the dumpster for her, and help her get back in her car. You don't hear about that too often. That's the stuff that goes on. And if I don't know about it, I can't tell you about it. And I want to tell you about the good successes, because we always hear about the bad. And we have great staff, and I think it's important that we talk about that. Annual town report will be going to the printer tomorrow morning after you approve it. Schedule will be completed in 2 weeks. Police chief oral board meets tomorrow afternoon for the internal police chief interview. We've got the first draft of the floor plan. It's a draft plan, the actual plan for what potentially a new town hall would look like for Mike Lassell, and I want to thank him for helping with that. We're going to be talking about it with the staff. So where we're going with that at this point is we've got a couple of loose ends to follow up on the draft of that and some property that we own. We're trying to tie up some loose ends. Once I get that, I'll be asking you for a workshop and be bringing it all back to you and saying, here's where we're at right now. This is what we're looking at. Let's talk about what your input's going to be and what do you want to do with it next. So we've completed the admin department, fire safety and training's been complete. Which brings us up to the current safety standards, Maine Department of Labor, Transfer Station and Highway. Will be done next week. All the employees are now getting a copy of the personnel policy. They apparently never had it before. So now they're all getting a copy of the personnel policy and they're getting an acknowledged sheet signed for it, said to read it and understand it and make sure that you know what it says and what we're adhering to. We had a meeting this week with the revised company for the new website, and it was basically just about a 20-minute thing on setting up the 6 buttons on the front of the website, which ones we're gonna, that'll be the permanent ones and so forth. Now they're moving on, they're gonna start getting information for the rest of the departments. They get a copy of this.
Yes.
This is the ad going out for the new code enforcement officer. We started posting that. The good news is that we wrote a really nice ad. The bad news is there are 8 other code enforcement officer positions being advertised right around us, and places in Somersworth is looking. York is looking, all the way up the coast, Brunswick's looking, so there's some competitive people out there looking.
Too bad for them.
That's right.
We met with Mimi Demers regarding community guidance. She told us on how that worked, and we offered anything we could do to help her. I did, Jack, I offered for you to go over and help plant the gardens and work the weeds. She was very thrilled about that. We met with Greg.
Tell her I said, say hi to Ray for me.
Met with Greg Sessler, the Little League manager, about ball fields and tractors needs and anything that he needed to get his program started. One of the things they needed is they bought a new tow behind rake for their field to rake the infields. And they had 2 little garden tractors and they burned the first one out. So Jay and myself went over and looked at the rake. Well, it's a pretty big, heavy rake. And those little tractors aren't designed to do that, and burning the bearings out in there, the wheels, the hubs. So we looked at what it was. We met with Greg. We figured out what they needed. They were trying to raise money for a big, not a big, I say big, but bigger than a little lawn mower kind of thing, riding lawnmower, like a little tractor. So we had leftover money in the budget because of the watering last year, is that correct?
That is correct, because we had the water ban, we weren't able to water the fields. Therefore, we only get 1 bill in the fall, so there was a little extra money.
What they needed, and the other complaint they had is sometimes the mowers came on Monday, so come the weekend, the field's tall. And then they would try to call the mower to come mow a second mowing, and he was charging us and all this going back and forth. So I said to Jay, I thought if we could get just a little 4-wheel drive tractor that had a mowing deck on it, we could kill 2 birds with 1 stone. They could use it to rake the fields, and if we need to, we can mow it. And, somebody from volunteer from the group could mow it. So Jay went on a hunt and seek mission. Found a $14,000 John Deere tractor. It's almost brand new, 2019, with 120 hours on it. It was used by an elderly gentleman with a snowblower. It was on the showroom floor for about $12,500, and they offered it to us with a discount for $10,300. So we bought it for them, and we're getting it for them, and they are super excited. And it'll be able to help the soccer fields, Little League fields. It'll be able to help everybody over there. So, I mean, he was pretty excited about that. We met with Pat Robinson about the mission statement for the Conservation Commission. I sent that on to Phil Saucier. I've got some info back on that. We're talking about where that will go into the charter, not the charter, the policy, personal policy. And met with Bill Toby, who's the lawn mowing contract fellow, and discussed the lawn mowing contract and the expectations, how we're gonna make that work. And that's kind of been our week, our last 2-3 weeks. So, any questions on my town manager report? We've been really busy, a lot going on. Quick question while I got your attention. Tours of the police station, fire station, and services. When do you want to do that? Do you want to, we're always busy before meetings. I think everybody's rushing to get in here. Would it be better for those who want to go? I know Jack, you probably seen it, but you can, I know John works in the day. Would it be better to schedule like during the day? Would that work for you both? Could you come during the day?
I'd like to do it at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, perfect.
Just, we did that with the parking committee back in 2014, whenever we were meeting. We got great attendance, people showed up, there was an easy, because everybody's day seems to cascade. Trying to fit something in, so by the time afternoon comes around, things are slow.
Well, you can do morning, but I think 7 o'clock trying to get us there to get the staff there. You know, that's that might be a difficult challenge for me, you know, trying to get them there, but.
I think 7 o'clock is kind of hard for kids in school.
Well, and again, it's just early, I think the earlier the better, then
Yeah.
we can get on with that day.
So would 8, 9 o'clock, something like 9 o'clock work for you folks, or something like that work? If I could set up for us. I can send an email out and see if you guys are,
The only one that I don't know, I'm speaking for everybody here, but John might have a problem with that.
yeah, I don't know if he's,
If he's a 4:30 guy,
yeah.
when he's working.
When I talked to him originally, he said, you know, I'm all set, I've seen all the
Yeah.
buildings, I'm with, so I don't know that we need to necessarily include him, I'll certainly check with him, but if
Yeah.
not, then okay, so I'll try to set something up, I'll check with John when he's available, he gets better, and I'll try to set something up and see if we can get some of that done, so you guys can get a look at it.
Yeah, I'm flexible most days as long as I have advance notice. We'll just need to make sure whatever we land on that we post it. Because if there's 3 of us together, then it's technically a meeting, I guess.
I'll run it by the attorney, but the
If
last,
that's the case,
what's
we
that?
just need to post it, that's all.
Yeah, well, yeah, you know, I don't know doing the tour of a building if you're not gonna conduct any official business. you need to post it.
We went through it, a couple of times we went to Augusta and, you know, the 3 of us in the same car,
Doesn't hurt, I
Okay.
guess.
so.
All right,
He's supposed to.
yeah, it won't hurt to post it. That's what I have anyway. That's town manager. And the last thing is, as always, I'd like to just thank all the staff. Everybody's been doing a great job. Especially I want to compliment Jen and Dawn on the town report. They've done an excellent job. I want to compliment Barbara and her staff, taking all the tax payments over the last month. They've been really busy. And just everybody else is really just doing a great job. They're dedicated and they're hardworking, and the town of South Berwick, I hope, recognizes the benefit of having such great employees, because they all are, they're doing a great job.
We told you that would be the case.
Thank you. One quick question on the town report. You said we needed to approve it?
Well, just the warrant piece, because.
Just the warrant piece,
That's
okay.
Yeah,
gonna
the
be in
warrant.
I
there.
thought you were talking the whole report.
No, just the one.
Got it. Okay, nothing else from you guys? Moving on to unfinished business, number 1, medical marijuana caregiver licensing. Does anyone from the public have anything on this topic? All right, we're gonna move on then to number 2. I think the update here is the same as it's been for a little while. The planning board continues to work on these items, and will get us more information once they have some updates. Any,
Yeah, if you're talking to the chair, just, I'm kind of curious where we are,
Mhm.
as you know, moving along here. You know, is it, I want to set a deadline, but.
Yeah.
You know, when's the expected delivery?
They did make some progress their last meeting. so
Yeah.
we
I
should
haven't
have
been
that
tuning
soon.
in. So-
yeah, I haven't been paying attention, but I've had a few different conversations with Betsy, and I was expecting that a little bit of a hurdle would have been achieved at the last meeting, but I think you guys attend fairly consistently. So if you want to give like the high level overview where,
I wasn't able to go to the last meeting,
Okay.
but I've been, overall, I feel like they're working hard and
Yeah.
and they're making progress. It's not just spinning wheels, they're with the new members too. They've been
Yeah.
brought up to speed pretty quickly, I
Yeah.
think, and effectively. I don't know if what you have to offer from the last meeting, because I wasn't there.
Yeah, I just know that they're making, we should probably be seeing something fairly soon.
Okay.
And they are very aware of the time
Mhm.
too. They've been talking about it, but we can't just keep kicking it and doing it. They're aware of it, so.
anything else on unfinished business number 1 or 2? All right, we'll move on to new business number 1, discussing the Great Works Regional Land Trust request that we heard 2 or 3 weeks ago at our last meeting regarding the parcels along the Salmon Falls River. I wanted us to discuss this today. Tim, I know you're here. Do you have anything you want to add on this at all? Or, and also anyone else on the phone?
Yeah, actually, I would add one thing, because we, after that meeting 2 weeks ago, we had a call from the butter just to the north, and he offered to sell his portion of the land also. So suddenly that was another 400 feet of river frontage and another 12 acres. So suddenly, the project expanded by quite a bit. And so Great Works has been dealing with this, seeing that if we could fit it in. And so we would add like $400,000 to the, probably to the budget. But it seemed like too big of an opportunity to also just pass up. So the project did change, in a significant way. Also, the development road to this parcel went through the original property. So, by doing this, we would eliminate that right of way, that road that would go through. So the project that we're doing, this parcel that he offered to us, and to access it, he has a right of way through the Peace and Plenty Farm. And so if we buy that parcel, we will not, have to access, we can eliminate that right away.
So the addition of this new piece since the last time we talked, basically creates access.
No, it eliminates the need for him to have access. He has an access right over Peace and Plenty
Oh,
Farm
okay.
to
Okay,
access his 12 acres. And he
He's
was,
willing
of
to
course,
sell
he
it.
was, since he's willing to sell it, he of course was interested in developing it. That was his purpose for acquiring it. So we would eliminate that.
the need to give.
So that's, again, so Great Works continues to look at a number of funders. Again, as I mentioned last time, several of them require municipal ownership to apply in an applicant.
Mhm.
So that was one of the questions we had for you. And to consider.
So the two big things are potential municipal ownership, and then the second one would be just some type of financial contribution.
Yes.
Anyone have any thoughts on this?
The ownership piece is a bit of a hurdle. Typically, we're at a point where we're actively, and as you know, over the years, we've been active in terms of getting land back on the tax rolls, and also so that the town doesn't put on the business of holding land. I mean, we have parcels like the town forest or other types of things like that that are longstanding. And, but typically our position has been to, we have been conservation minded on many fronts, and supported the land trust in those sorts of adventures or ventures. Sometimes it goes into adventure. And, but typically it's a more of a facilitation role. And I would ask you to seek if we held a conservation easement, a recreational easement, as we would do, like, say, over a class 6 road, that sort of thing. That would be something I think would be a lot easier to sell.
This is the federal government. They don't negotiate. They say the municipal has to be the applicant, or you can't apply. I mean, I think that's, it's a million possibility of getting $1 million for the project, maybe. It's not a small amount of money.
Well, that wasn't stated the last time, so that's.
Oh, okay, no, these are federal programs. Yeah, okay, that's why I'm here.
So it's coming out of this office, that's another.
Yeah, this is, that's, we understand exactly what you're saying, and of course, the land trust, one of the services the land trust offers to communities is to manage their conservation land and conservation open space, so we have no qualms about owning it and managing it. But some funders like these, for this big of a project, we're having to search a little bit bigger on the scheme to where is this money gonna come from? And two of the sources, the Land and Water Conservation Fund, which is again through the U.S. Department of the Interior, and the Conservation and Estuary Land Protection Program, which is through NOAA, both require that the town or some municipal governmental agency be the applicant and the owner. I do have a call into the Bureau of Recs and Parks in Maine and see if they might be interested in being the owner, since they own Bond State, Bond Woods just adjacent to it or close to this property. So I'm looking at other options, to see, but That's why I came to the town was sort of the easiest and the first choice. Because you were local, and like in North Berwick, we're doing a project with North Berwick. They have to be the applicant, but we will manage, Great Works will manage the property for the town of North Berwick under a memorandum of understanding. So the town doesn't actually have any management responsibilities on the project if it goes through. So something like that could be done. We're flexible. Great Works will do whatever it can to, to have this happen if the community wants it to happen. But right now I'm looking at 8 or 9 different funding opportunities to see which one will fit. And it's likely I'm going to have to use several because of the cost of this project.
I feel like I'm sort of struggling just because this feels very like vague right now, if that makes sense, of like, there's a lot of funding options, like it doesn't feel like you guys have like a really structured plan or proposal for us. So it's sort of like, we want this land, we need it, you could own it, like, this is just me personally, I just feel like this is very like, kind of unstructured request, if that makes sense.
Right, and I think we're interested in hearing your responses and your ideas.
Yeah.
We've certainly just been discussing and working on this for over a year. We've raised a little bit over $500,000 towards this project.
Yeah.
We have to remain flexible because whoever puts up money is going to want something for that. No one just gives you money. And so we have to remain a little bit vague and a little bit flexible. Because that's the way the funding sources work. And they have goals they want to achieve. And we have to make sure we can meet those goals. So we don't want to go out and say, oh, well, there's going to be this and this and this on the property, and then have the funder come through and say, well, we don't think so. If you want, your $750,000 or something. So you're exactly right. We have been a little bit vague and flexible, and we can be more specific if you would like. But I think at this stage, I was sort of interested in hearing, your feelings and your opinions about this, and is it, how important would this be to the community? Is it worth going through all the work or not down there? I know I certainly heard, and I'm aware of how busy and occupied, Vaughan Wood State Park is, and here we have a chance to maybe, duplicate it a little bit just down the road, and maybe connect the two with a trail even. I don't know. Is that of value to the community for all this work? That's what I'm sort of interested in hearing from you. So I have been relatively unspecific because I'm still in the information gathering, putting the project together and seeing how it might work for the whole town.
The other thing we need some background on is the plan. I mean, we touched upon is, the recreational paths and things like that, but other things like the Land Trust has a history of forestry activity and managing, which is an important piece. I understand the percentage of this land is largely forested.
Yes.
And so there would have to be that management piece, and so that we have to have eyes wide open on something like that, as if it was going to be in say timber growth, but to actively manage the property for the, not for just one generation, but 20 generations as we move through, just for the health of the forest. And so it's those things that are important to understand how that's would be part of the management plan. And way too early for that to coalesce, I assume. The other piece is that I'm just thinking about it after the meeting. It makes sense to me that if the town makes a contribution, that we would do so to fund the purchase of the property, the stewardship and management piece. That's kind of pie in the sky. It's really, it's a big guess. So I think to make the project land, I would suggest to the town that we, any contribution we would make would be to the actual sale of the property, exclusive of the other, above the line kind of activities, because that's a lot of money. And there was one other piece. Oh yeah, we'd probably want to be doing it with last dollars in. That way there, there's an amount that, if we can shy this amount, that'd be an opportunity to perhaps, get us to the finish line as opposed to first order.
So Justin, I know you have a question, but I have a follow-up from what Jack said. So the last dollars and type of approach, like we talk about that in conjunction with like the potential need for, any a funding source requires the town to own the land, right? Like, can those two things happen at the same time? Meaning
Yes.
like we would sort of like provide like the last X amount to kind of get to the point in which the land could be purchased. And then I guess like explain how that process would work, I guess, where the town would then acquire the land.
Sure. Well, in the case of the town being the owner, and for these two funding sources, the town would be the applicant.
Okay, yep.
So you would put, and again, with the, the example with North Berwick, we did all the funding, we wrote the grants, we put it in, or we sent it to the town manager went up, reviewed it, with the interaction, and then it was sent in. And the town is actually the applicant. We provide the legwork behind that. And of course, they're putting, it's always sort of the last money in anyway, because if we don't get the last dollar, the project doesn't go forward. So that's not really an issue of being the last dollar in, because if we fall short and can't buy the property, then, there's no deal, no one's money goes anywhere. And just, so that's not really too hard to do. And you, of course, if you were the owner, you'd be there at the closing and you would accept title to the property right there, put your money in at that point. I think what's important to the project in a town contribution is that it sort of indicates to funders that the town is interested, that the town sees this a value.
Yeah.
Because they all understand how hard tax dollars are. So I think that's the biggest part of that. If if there's tax dollars being offered, those funders who are, again, down in Washington DC or Atlanta, Georgia, they said they don't have to ask the question, is the community behind this? They know the simple fact that the town has voted and put dollars forward. So otherwise, how do you answer that question? Is the town interested?
Yeah.
Any town can write a letter of support, but if they write, offer to write a check,
Mhm.
and it's been voted, so it's been voted on, so they have a record of that vote.
Mhm.
That's a big deal, and that's really helpful, because it is competitive. These
Mhm.
grant funding, competing nationally for these projects and this money.
Mhm.
There's always the factor of personal choices versus who we represent. And I remember, probably you were on the council when I decided a phone call that I got from someone who lives out on Thurlow Road. And she said to me that, I know you have nothing to do with this, but my cable bill just went up by $2.80 a month. And she had basic cable, and she's living on $700 a month, Social Security. That's her, that's what she gets. And so she didn't say this, but there are folks out there that are probably making a choice. Loaf of bread, quart of milk, or do I watch TV? That kind of thing. So we have to think about them, and then using that as perhaps an extreme example, but there's also needs to be a demonstration to the five of us that sit here, as well as counsel from staff, that this is compellingly in the town's interest to go forward with this. And then if we have that statement of interest, like fortunately, we have a townwide survey going out that, we're going to be meeting on that on the 25th to kick off the comprehensive plan update. There will be a townwide resident survey. And that's a good opportunity to, have a, see where the town sits with respect to that. Now, I don't know, I expect that survey to go out probably in June. And if we get positive feedback on that, then that helps us get to our decision-making finish line. You know, so we see a demonstration of overwhelming town support. It's a big deal.
And I think that's exactly why I'm here, because, you know, the land trust is a conservationist, we work with landowners. It's not necessarily done in the public realm of public decision-making, and it needs to be. And so I think that's exactly why I'm here, talking to you and getting your feedback, because exactly what you said, Jack, it has to be a community need and a community has to see benefits here. Or why will we do this? I mean, it's not, you know, that's exactly what we need to know. And in the other towns we've done in, of course, nothing, I mean, the proof is at the ballot box. I mean, when we put these money and money requests on the ballot box, the voters tell us clearly. And in both the Gumpert case and in North Berwick case, it was 88% and 87% in favor of those two proposals, you know, in both, 88% in North Berwick. And I think it was 86% in the Gumpert, you know, so, I mean, that, and again, we use that to leverage other funding, because when they saw that, this isn't a full scope, this is not necessarily controversial. So, you know, we support that type of a referendum on any expenditure, because, well, exactly what you just said. I mean, people need to make choices, and this is something maybe not 100% critical, but do we want it? Is this what we want in our community or not? We need to know. The land trust doesn't know that either. And so, yeah, that's why that's why I'm here, to have that, so that public input and that public referendum, if we can get it on the project.
Jack stole my comments about the comprehensive plan, but that's okay. But I did have, you know, if we were to have some sort of understanding where these are three potential paths where, you know, this one has town ownership, these two don't, and maybe like just to help visualize what the ask is for us. I think that would be helpful and beneficial, at least from my perspective, to see it in writing and a little bit more.
I can do that, although I'm sensing I will not get a choice in where I apply. I will be directed by the most likely funds, and right now, it's that Conservation Estuary and Land Protection Program seems to be very good, because they don't require a match. You know, so, you know, which is good. We do have money to match, but they don't require one, so they might be a good fit. And plus, they have a lot of money, and they haven't been funded in 6 years. It's a federal program. It just got funded this past fall again. They're revamping the rules right now. And what I've heard in talking to people who are slightly involved is that they want projects that can happen quickly. So they want to get the money, they want to get it out the door, and they want to be able to show that this money did this. So that's suddenly what caught my attention, because we have this project pretty much ready to go. And the landowners are on board. They're giving us the time we need, and they have a little bit of flexibility in time. And so, you know, if we could come and say, we're ready to go, we can close this project, that would, you know, they call it readiness. How ready is your project? If we have all those ducks lined up.
Is
So-
this one that requires town ownership?
That
Yes,
is.
okay.
yeah.
One part, the referendum thing I think is interesting, because like where my mind was going was I to sort of gauge community support. I definitely think the comp plan survey is a good idea, but like, you know, I'm totally just like spitballing here, but I was thinking, you know, if we decided we wanted to make a contribution, you know, given where we're at with the budget and stuff, I think it would probably have to be something we pull from undesignated, and depending on the amount, we have to have a special town meeting in order to get approval to do that anyways. Where we could sort of like kill two birds with one stone in a sense, in terms of getting like almost like a vote of support from the town, kind of in like, as well as like providing the dollars. And so I guess my question about this is more for Barbara, for like, if we were to at some point in the future do any type of like referendum on this, what's just the lead time we need?
You want it on the November ballot? I need it by the end of August.
And we're definitely too late for June.
Oh, gosh, yes.
Yeah, okay. That's what I thought.
That was it.
So Tim, like, does that timeline,
That is the timeline.
well, I guess you're right, like, there's not. that's-
No, that's,
flexibility with that.
that is what it is. And, again, if we can say on to some of the funders that the town is going through this process, again, that says a lot in the application. And that this is where it could go to, like, it could go on the warrant in, August for the vote in November. Again, these are kind of like hints that the town is interested and supportive of the project. And that's what they're looking for. They don't want a land trust putting in for a project in a community that the community doesn't know about it.
Mhm.
This is not the way they want to operate.
Yeah,
And so that's, because it's a lot of money.
yeah. So I sort of wonder if we could, our sort of tentative plan could be, we'll put something in the comp plan survey to touch on this, which we think we'll probably have back well before the end of August. And then we can sort of take what we get back from that and use that to sort of drive whether or not we think this is something we want to put on the ballot in November.
I think it's something like this is helpful to push the survey forward.
Yeah, yeah,
Say we need this out by. this.
yes, yeah, there we go. Gonna get the wheels turning.
Yeah. It's, it's, can we get paid twice for it kind of thing. And Tim, have we reached out across the river?
Yes, and they actually have, we've just done a couple small grants from the Greater Piscataqua Collaborative over there, and they've granted us, $25,000. And that's what we've been using to now to fund, some survey work, some appraisal work, to do stuff like that. So we have reached out, so they know about the project. We were going to reach out to them again if it seems to be going forward. We're going to go back to them and see if they have any funding sources, because this is going to take multiple.
Yeah, it's all collaborative. and
Right.
I was thinking about prep,
Yeah.
those folks, and then, harking back to, different projects along the waterfront down there, there was again, how many linear feet of square footage or acres of saltwater marsh we talking about?
It's probably about this, the new edition doesn't have as much as the original one, so there's probably about 10 acres of emergent, what they call vegetation you can see on the marsh, and then there's, of course, the submergent tidal flats, which is maybe another half, so it's like 10 and maybe 16 if you include all the intertidal areas. And there's about 10 acres of emergent. That's what a lot of this, the kelp program is interested in and so forth, because salt marsh is being impacted by, pollution and climate change and sea level rise. And so they're looking to protect this type of environment. Because they, helps keep healthy water, clean water in the estuaries.
And so as we move forward, just so I'm clear too, looking at what you presented before, look, you've got roughly a quarter to a third of the funds for the total project already.
Yeah, a little less than a quarter now. I had about a third until the
Yeah.
landowner came up and he's just offering it and I need to get back to him. I mean,
And so what, in our referendum, we need to put a dollar amount. What dollar amount would we be aiming at? For the
It's too
nine
early
for the
too
other.
early to take that right now.
Okay, I don't think that it's too early to look at the number and say that of the 13,000 that is still needed to be putting it out there as in our minds that we're looking at, or no, it's not 13,000, it's $1 million
Right.
plus. So half a million dollars, is that what South Berwick? Would that be enough to?
I would like to be less than that.
Yeah,
I could, I mean, that's my goal.
Small
I'm
answer to-
a taxpayer in South Berwick. I live in Wells, but I don't own property in South Berwick, so I would like it to be less than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's all I'm wondering. I think
It's
we're
made
very,
his night,
we're very,
What was North Berwick's contribution? Like,
Yeah.
Okay, North Berwick
What are-
contributed $100,000, $20,000 was to property improvement and $80,000 was to the land acquisition, and plus they contributed an in-kind piece of property of $21,000 value. Gunkwit, we had one, and that's for about a $600,000 or $500,000 project. In Gunkwit, it was a $1.2 million project, and the town contributed $300,000 to that project. And so those are the two recent ones we've done, and, the one in North Berwick is ongoing right now. They already voted the fund, they voted the funds a year ago, so that was really helpful. Because that stimulated the other, proposals. So, but that's, so somewhere probably, I guess, in between, maybe.
I didn't need a hard and fast number. I just wanted to
Right.
personally have an idea, because we're gonna go to a referendum with $500,000. In my mind, I say, why waste the ink right now? But if it's a reasonable number, then it's worth it having the conversation.
Again, that's what the land trust is trying to do, is trying to leverage a contribution from the community into a much larger amount. And that's what we see as our job, like in both in North Berwick and in Gunkwit. In Gunkwit, we were able to give the town $900,000 in this project to their 300,000, so that's what we're trying to do. And that's the power, I think, of tax dollars, is that funders understand how hard it is to make that decision to offer it, and then to have it pass in the referendum. So it does not have to be, you don't have to be paying for half of it, or, that doesn't, I don't believe it's necessary.
So I think to close out this topic for the evening, and I would say, let's do the survey. And then we can kind of regroup after that and kind of tentatively plan. I think it seems like across the council, at least there's support too. Yeah.
I have one other thing
Okay.
before we close up.
Yep.
I think on that side of the table, there really needs to be a resource inventory. And again,
It's been done.
beginning with Habitat type resources to show what the intrinsic value is, and what the vision is. That
We
needs to
have,
be
we have the
demonstrated.
ecological resource inventory. What we don't have is, like a recreational plan or anything.
No, but this is just the value of the land as it's in situ today.
Right.
Various things, whether it's the tidal marsh, the tidal zone, all the way up to the upland and what's going on there. And then at that point, we have something to talk about and say, this is demonstration of value. That's something you can give us, which is potentially might sell a project.
So I think we'll put this on the survey, and then I think at least among the council tonight, it seems like we have support to potentially pursue putting this on a referendum, as a referendum in November, to kind of see where people stand on it, with to be determined about that. We don't know today, but your insight was
And
helpful.
Great Works is going to continue to explore the funding opportunities and see which one kind of bubbles up to the top as most likely, and, have the best chances of success. So that's what we're going to continue to do. Like I said, I have about 8, choices that I've been following. Hard to take a combination of those, so I'll keep I'll, stay in touch with Tim.
Yeah.
And let him know how that goes, so we can,
I think
watch
that's
it.
one other thing.
Mhm.
Has the land trust reached out to the abutters? In terms of.
That's kind of the last dollars in for us.
No, not for, but just a demonstration of support or non-support for something like this in their neighborhood.
We have not. This has been sort of the first public airing of this project, although we've been working on it for about 14 months. We had to see that there was a path to success, I guess. What we're working on, is there a path that we can be successful at? And we're getting there, I think, with these funding choices. And now this public discussion with the town council. So it is suddenly, last the 22nd of March, when we came in, that was the first public discussion. The land trust has not talked about this project publicly until that evening. And here's sort of a follow-up. So we have not reached out to the neighbors. Again, we wanted to protect sort of the privacy of the landowner, in case it wasn't going to go forward. We didn't want it out there, but, we talked to her and she said she was fine with us going to the town council on that evening. So we are certainly going to do that, and we will have a public fundraising campaign. But that has not been You know, again, that's sort of, you want that to be the, you know, some of the last dollars in, when you're close to your goal, not, you know, I think that's how you want.
Again, I'm not talking about money in
Yeah.
from the abutters, I'm talking about a demonstration of support for the project from the abutters. Otherwise, we have the scars on our back from the attempt in a couple of locations to locate it, what I thought was a honey of a site for a police department, and it blew up in our face. And so,
Okay,
so where we are now on 236 is not where we started out, and there was tremendous backlash for that particular thing, so
okay,
just want to avoid that, and if we're gonna be fighting the neighborhood, then you know, that's a tougher sell.
Anything else? Melissa? Thanks, Tim, for being
All
here
right.
tonight.
sure, thanks.
All right, we'll move on to new business number 2, adopting the budget for fiscal year 2023 and signing the warrant calling for the town budget meeting. One thing on this that Tim and I were discussing earlier this evening, so this warrant that's in the supporting docs is listing the annual town meeting on Tuesday, May 10th at 6 o'clock. And I would like to propose that we move this to Wednesday, May 11th. We have two kind of things at play here with this meeting. The first is our moderator, Tom Harmon, is going to be out the second half, away the second half of May or so, but he is available through the 13th.
13th he leaves.
He leaves on the 13th, and then I am difficult, and I'm going to be out of town on the 10th, but I will be back on the 11th. Does anyone have any concerns with doing the 11th instead?
No.
Okay. All right, so I think for this, we just need a motion to adopt the budget and sign the warrant.
Okay, I will move to is adopt the correct word?
Hang on.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
So what it should say, what you need to say is that the motion should be to adopt the warrant as written with a change to include the 11th and all the articles as written. Need to approve the warrant as written, the articles as written.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I was just gonna list, you know, articles 1 through
Correct.
21.
With the change of Wednesday.
Yeah, that the only addition to the motion.
Yeah, go ahead.
To adopt the warrant. Articles 1 through 21.
Yeah.
As written for annual budget meeting on May 11th at 6 p.m.
A second. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on this? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. Motion passes 4-0. Yep. All right, unfinished, or sorry, new business number 3, crosswalks, elimination of parking spaces. I'm assuming this is for this topic.
Yes.
I thought it was gonna be the spring documents, but
So in request to, Abby had mentioned earlier, she brought it up that last year they had proposed eliminating some parking spaces to make the crosswalks more compliant with ADA, so we got the information. I sent Jay out on a hunt and destroy mission, so Jay went out and measured. We got the exact terminology from the state. And it ends up that in order to fix these, we would just eliminate 4 parking spots where you see which is closed off. Basically, it's the lane of travel coming towards the crosswalk where a car would park. It would block off access of seeing an individual safely 20 feet before the crosswalk. So there's 4 positions, there's 4 parking spaces rather. it would be eliminated, 2 by the post office, and then 2 up by the town square.
They're all upstream of the crosswalk.
Yeah,
Okay, is motion required on this?
yes.
Okay, I would move to amend our parking spaces for the markup tonight to move the parking spaces as shown.
I'll second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Sorry, I'm just taking a second to absorb this.
You get the intent?
Yes,
for-
yeah,
So
I,
people looking back at the cars, not another car being in the way.
yeah, I think this is good. Any discussion on this? Any other comments from anybody?
We vetted this through Maine DOT as well as Jay called the ADA people wherever they are, Massachusetts, I think, or wherever they're at. And ran it by them. We reconfigured it. Jay and Jen both went out and measured and walked this. So we crossed our Ts, dotted our Is. We're confident this solves what they had originally set up last year. They never completed.
And so this is going to be like executed just by paint.
Correct.
Okay.
So what we'll do is, when we do the crosswalk, we'll just paint those, we'll stripe them out white so that people won't park there, that's all.
Okay,
You can see in some of the pictures how there's
yeah.
flashes.
Yeah.
Look like that.
Any other discussion on this one? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0. That will be good, thank you. Approving our police union contract.
Madam Chair, there's no supporting docs on this, so I just like the town manager to give us these appropriate dates for the agreement.
Oh, sorry, the police union voted 2 weeks ago unanimously to accept the contract, to ratify it.
Mhm.
So the contract would be from July 1 of this year through till so this year is 22 to 23, 23 to 24 till June 30th, 2024. It's a 2-year contract.
Okay. So Madam Chair, I'll move to approve the police union contract with an effective date of July 1st, 2022, for the period of 2 years to June 30th of 2024, as negotiated and signed off by the police union and the staff. manager.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you.
New business number 5, planning board remote meeting policy. So I guess the planning board has some edits they would like to make to their remote meeting policy. And just for some additional background on this, a couple of months ago, I can't remember when, the planning board, we as a council voted to have the planning board's remote meeting policy reviewed by our attorney, Phil Saucier, and then he came back with some minor edits, which are included in what the planning board has proposed, but they have proposed some additional edits. And so I think my suggestion on this, of course, we can discuss, but is to again have that legal review conducted after they've made these edits.
As a point of order, I don't believe the council has jurisdiction over these policies.
No.
It's a planning board policy that they're charged with creating their own rules.
Mhm.
So I think it's nice that we've been appraised of the changes, but in fact, it's a piece of planning board business. And so if the planning board chair wishes to request to the manager a legal review, I think that's where that should come from.
They, Madam Chair, if I may, So it came to us, came to me. They were asking for my advice. And they said, can we do this? I'm not comfortable doing that. I'm not comfortable changing, attorney language at all. So, and I'm not comfortable, I mean, I can certainly send it on to legal, but I guess I was looking for your input. Where you did it the first time, you approved it to go to legal the first time.
They requested to us that we do that, and personally, I don't feel the need. I think that.
Okay, I'll send it to legal then. I just want to make you aware.
No, I don't feel the need to send it to the attorney.
I have some input on,
Okay.
the state is redoing and making amendments to the current remote meeting law. I'm not sure if it was actually amended. Or accepted in. So I'm not sure if sending this before this goes through might be, I don't know. Representative Roberts might have more to add on it. I don't know if she has more information.
Tiffany, do you have anything to add on the remote meeting policy?
I do, Madam Chair, thank you. The LD 1772 passed the House and the Senate today. So that's just a matter of time there. What that does is it does two things. It eliminates the expectation that meetings will automatically be in person from statute, and it also separates subordinate committees from municipal committees, i.e. the planning board from the town council. So that's LD 1772. There's a lot of legislation in this session that really affects municipalities.
Okay, thank you. Speaking for myself, I think, given this law that's brand new today, and also some of the concerns that have been raised in the past about the planning board's remote meeting policy, I think it would be worth having our attorney review it and just make sure that that we're all good and there's no issues.
All right, I'll send it over to Phil and have him brief it. I'm just not in the habit of making changes after legal counsel looked at something. I'm not.
Yeah.
That's beyond my realm, folks, sorry. I don't want to be talking to you from somewhere in jail.
Yeah.
That's all.
Again, I repeat that the planning board keeps their own house and
Well, they asked me and I just didn't feel comfortable without informing you. That's all. I just wanted the team approach it with you folks.
And so that, I was listening in on the planning board meeting when they had gone through this and feel like they felt they needed to talk to us. Do we need to clarify with that? Because I was thinking the same thing too. I didn't.
If you look at the
add that.
rules, you know,
It's just there.
it says the planning board adopts their rules, their policy, whatever the words are.
Okay.
And so that's where it is.
That feeling might have just been there because the kind of like last round that we did with this, they remember they had voted to, like, we want the council to have legal review this, so maybe that's where it came up from, but I do think it's probably worth having some legal.
And in the future, normally, if I had been here longer and been more familiar with the council, I probably would have just acted on this myself and done it. But in the spirit of teamwork and being new, I wanted to put it in front of you and at least see what you thought.
Yeah.
That's all, okay?
All good. All right, so Tim is going to send that over to Phil for review. Thank you. And then our last topic is discussing LD 2003. Does anyone from the public have anything to add on this topic? Let me set this up, I guess, a little bit. So LD 2003, and I might lean on Representative Roberts to maybe be a little bit more articulate about what it actually is, but is a law that's sort of on the table being discussed right now that does sound like it has some pretty significant impacts to municipalities from a planning, zoning perspective. And I think Representative Roberts is kind of looking for some type of opinion, I guess, from us as to where we stand on this item. So Representative Roberts, do you mind sort of giving us an overview?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the council, sorry, my allergies are acting up. I don't know if all of you had a chance to look at the law, the bill and the supporting documents. That's not what's currently being proposed. I did send an bullet points of the amendment to all of you, and then the actual amendment I sent to you, Mallory. I don't know if you saw that. This bill does a ton. It is, I have it here. Let me just pull it up. I don't know if the council was able to review it at all.
This is our first reading, so it's all new.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
all new.
So let me just pull up. If you'll bear with me one second here.
I'll be honest, I didn't get a chance to send over those amendments to the rest of the council.
So, can I defer to Councilor Minihan on this, because he is on the MMA LPC and has been going over this bill. I mean, I can start to give you some of the bullet points, but they've been voting on specific parts of it. And basically where I'm at right now is MMA has taken a stance against this bill. I've been hearing from constituents both for and both against the bill, because it is addressing the housing shortage. But I'm also hearing that it's stepping on home rule, and it's looking at affecting our conservation areas and affecting our infrastructure resources, public safety resources. It's adding ADUs everywhere. There's a ton that this bill is doing. So I guess I will defer to Councilor Minihan to kind of give a brief overview, but North Berwick did vote as a select board to take a stance, and other towns and planning boards have been doing so as well.
So, I think that, what Tim sent along was really good, and then with other city managers that have chimed in, they're all on the LPC as well.
Can I add something?
Absolutely, go ahead.
Councilman Minihan, thank you. So this is from MMA. This is the amended, the majority report has amended. So I got that for you today. What I wanted you to, I don't know enough, I'm not intelligent enough to understand all the code stuff and apply it to the zoning ordinances of South Berwick. Yeah, I don't know the zoning ordinances well enough. So I'm looking at it from a manager's perspective to seeing what the rest of the managers world is saying, listening to some of their counsels. The one I found the best, that I gave you a copy of, it's on page 3, and it starts with the word opposed. I'm sorry, Tiffany, I didn't send this in for documents so you could have a copy of it, but I'll be glad to send it to you. It's from Steve Buck from the city of Sanford. And it's basically a one-page letter, and he's writing it's opposed. And he writes that though the changes being made, the fundamental elements of the destruction of the comprehensive planning, most importantly, home rule authority remains. If something's completely broken, partially broken, it's not yet fixed, it remains broken. And then he goes on to talk about some of the areas specifically. I found that helpful. The majority of what I can tell you is the majority of what I'm seeing from the managers listserv, the managers stuff with MMA, they asked them to take a vote. Managers themselves, not speaking to the community, the managers are opposing it because it's interrupting home rule and it'll overrule our own local zoning ordinances that we've already developed. So a lot of them are saying, no, the intent of the bill is good, but the actual meat and potatoes is gonna create, issues inside. That's the most I can tell you of this. I sent along the 2 most informed ones that I thought I could find. And I sent you the amended bill. And you see the one from Gary Lamb, the Hallwell city manager, and he just writes, although the amended version is a bit less restrictive, it still intrudes into home rule authority. More importantly, it lacks strong incentives to developers. Instead, creates more planning grants and other administrative bureaucratic, well-intentioned new government with no accompanying carrots to private sector developers. And he goes on to say a few more things. But I had to talk to the town manager in North Berwick and Dwayne, and he was talking about it, and he had a good point. He's been doing this a lot longer than me. Anytime the state makes, no offense, Tiffany, when I say the state, it's not you, just, but when the state legislature makes a rule that applies to every municipality all the way from Madawaska to York, one blanket doesn't necessarily fit every entity. So I tried to get you a little bit of information as fast as I could. So that's all I can tell you, and that's the best I can, I don't know if that,
In our conversations about the bill, and so with the LPC is elected and appointed officials that are talking about these bills that are coming through and saying, how will this impact our municipality and what do we feel? And so when this came up, it was, we all voted no, to oppose it, because it was even more restrictive.
Mhm.
So things that we're talking about in this are, I don't know the definition of a single unit home, but I believe it's changing the definition of that statewide, so we'd have to look at that as well. But it's allowing for more dwellings to be put at every one of our homes. And then out in our R4 and R5 area, which has more space, but is also fragile land. It's just saying you're allowed to have 4 dwelling units out there. But not thinking about that we've got brooks and wetlands and turtles and salamanders and snakes. It doesn't take that into account. It talks about shoreland and stuff like that, but it's a very wide brush of just saying, go ahead. One of the great points that I thought that I wasn't necessarily thinking of was the town of Wells was saying, you know, a lot of their municipal facilities, EMS, are in that center of town. And when you get out to the outer areas, just similar to ours, we have our police and our fire all here. When you get out to Bell Marsh and out to Bennett Lot Road, those areas, if these places have dwelling units, you now have how many people? 2, 3, 4 people that are now in these dwelling units. What's the rate of incident that could occur that now is going to be taxing our already pretty stretched services? So I felt like those were just similar, just reasons to be able to say, well, let's slow down and not be gung ho for this.
Mhm.
I think that the housing, we need to do something as a people to help with housing. I just don't, and I believe a lot of the people in LPC and the town managers and stuff that have been saying, this isn't necessarily the right answer for it.
and that's exactly what the town managers are talking about, is saying, we all agree and recognize there's a housing problem, we all agree and recognize that has to get fixed, but we don't think that this is, you know, intruding on a home rule, and one blanket doesn't fit the whole state.
I have a few thoughts, and I'll echo what Jeff said, is that, you know, over the years, our land use ordinances have been carefully considered. And there's certain fundamentals that we encourage growth in the areas where the municipal services are available. Like B1 doesn't have any performance standards. You could go wall to wall, property line to property line with density. I was seeing that down by the railroad track. That's fine. It's B1 and we could do, and then it builds out from there in layers where, and the other, there's actual statements to say we're encouraging infill development between, let's say, Witch Trot Road, working back in towards the village core. And we want to, you know, put the people where the services are. Makes sense to me, and we've been working at that as long as I've been in government, 30 years here. And so to have something sweeping come in, a blanket statement is, I guess I'd best describe it, you know, in terms of the overall affordable housing topic. Affordable housing has always been low-hanging political fruit. Those people can get on the State House steps and say, we're gonna make it, you know, the chicken in every pot kind of thing, you know, we're gonna make everything affordable, it's gonna be great. And then they're simply passing the buck down to the municipalities who have the least resources to affect these sorts of laws. And you know, who's against it? Affordable housing, it's great. I love it, right? But in order to implement it, we've, you know, you go back to the 50s with the urban renewal projects, which was a nationwide project in brought us Columbia Point in Boston, East St. Louis, and they were disasters. They were basically prisons where we stockpiled poor people. And they failed. They're all blown up in the 60s and 70s, and took them out. And so I don't want to repeat those kind of failures. We're not going to be on that scale, but still there's that opportunity to replicate these sort of judgments from on high, and government coming down and saying, you shall do this. When in fact, we've been trying to do our best to try and make it out, but we can't control the cost of a good developable lot. We can't control that. We can't control the cost of a 2x4. Just like we can't control the cost of a gallon of gasoline. It'd be nice to be able to do that, but local government simply can't do that. So it seems to me a little bit of overreach. And like I said, it's low hanging political fruit, but people can get the bump out of it and say what we did, but then pass the buck down towards our municipal level.
Tiffany, when does session end and when will this be voted on?
So we are supposed to be done at some point next week. Madam Chair, if I may just put a couple of points forward for the council's consideration. And I would say this is something that if you're going to take an opinion on, would probably be tonight. It's already been reported out, so it should be hitting the floor any day. To Councilman Caracas' point, this actually is not being billed as an affordable housing bill. It's being billed as a housing bill, which is a give and take, because it means, out in the R4, R5, you can put another unit on your property, but it can be a $2 million house. So it's not really increasing our affordable housing. For affordable housing in your high density growth areas, it's allowing for 2.5 times density, assuming that you enter into a covenant deed for 30 years for it to be affordable at 80% of the median income. And I just wanted to touch on what Mr. Pellerin said regarding zoning, just so you guys are clear on everything, because I know there's a ton here. They're saying this bill preserves all local dimensional requires, setback requirements, base density requirements, minimum lot size, shoreline zoning requirements, subdivision regulations, and any existing or future deed restrictions or neighborhood governance covenants. So in order to build a duplex in a single family zone, the duplex would need to comply with the dimensional requires and setback requirements for that single family zone. Otherwise it wouldn't be allowed. And to build any new units at all under the bill, it still requires proof that there is sufficient capacity for drinking water and wastewater systems before a municipality certifies the project. So I just wanted to put those couple points in there as well. But as I said, we are pushing stuff out every day. This amendment has been put forth. I would expect for it to hit the floor, if not this week, on Monday of next week or Tuesday.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And it's, Madam Chair, if I may, this is a tricky one for me. It's my job to represent all of the district, and you all represent all of the districts. So, to be a united voice, I think would be most effective, if that makes sense.
Jeff?
I just wanted to, just for general comment, since at least 93 or before that, there's been manufactured housing laws on the books. And those, when those were passed, they allowed for non-standard developments to occur. And that was an attempt to say, okay, how can we put people into homes? We, at first blush, we thought we'd see an increase or in demand for manufactured housing, and it never materialized. Because the people who did built to the market. They analyzed what people are going to buy and what they're going to rent, and that's what gets built in the mobile home cooperatives or manufactured housing never really emerged, even though there were dimensional standards that encouraged that particular land use. And so we weren't, it just never happened. you know, the parks like we have down in Vine Street just stay where they were and that was that. So that's another piece of it that, yeah, there's a history here and I think we have to be very, very careful with this.
Any other discussion or comments? If not, I think given the timing, I will offer up a motion for us to vote on as to whether or not we as a council support this bill. So I'll offer up a motion to support the bill LD 2003 housing bill. So we would vote yes if we support it, nay if we oppose it. Can I get a second? All right, we have a motion and a second. All those,
I'd like the discussion, please.
oh yes, sorry, thank you.
Just as kind of a point of order, this is the first reading
Mhm,
on this particular matter.
mhm,
I don't feel qualified to vote on that particular motion tonight, so I'll be voting opposed
Mhm.
to that because I think it's out of order. I think at least we should have had a second reading and a chance to digest all this information. I mean, I did not read even what was in, I read part of it,
mhm,
but now I find out that it's not real in the supporting docs.
mhm.
So I think that the motion is premature and I'm opposed to it.
I think, I'm curious what everyone else thinks. I think that there's a little bit of a timing play at this because come our next meeting, they'll be out of session and we'll have missed our opportunity to provide an opinion on it.
Yeah, I think, even on the LPC, this was a last minute bill. It was put in as an emergency and that was one of the amendments that got stripped away from it. I've been called to meetings 4 times for this bill alone. So it's been just on and on with the amendments and stuff. So I agree with you. I don't know how anybody would be up to speed with it.
Yeah.
Right now. And it was voted on in committee. Their committee came out of session to look at this. And they passed, the committee voted on it and made an amendment to it. And that's how they got it to this point to where they'll be looking at it in the House. So the reasons that I've already explained, I think everything that you've said, Jack, with just the hesitation
Mhm.
upon the look that you've had, I feel is worthy of being opposed to it. And I've been opposed to the bill. I think it's too big. And I think that stopping and having the bill just stopped and
It feels
rethink
rushed.
it. Yes, I think so. I'll be voting to oppose this bill.
Any discussion?
I would like to add, just you copied on this memo, because I reached out to Paul Schumacher, the executive director of Southern Maine
Mhm.
Planning Development Commission. Just for and Tim was copied on Paul's reply, so I'll just read it into the record at this point. Hi all, yeah, this is pretty drastic change in land use regulation from the residential perspective. I guess until it finally gets out of the sausage making machine, it's hard to talk about impact. Much of it is good from an affordable housing perspective. However, the allowable increases in density in the rural areas is a big unknown. There will definitely be an allowance for more development in rural areas, which will impact Southburg, with how Southburg deals with growth and conservation in those areas. Density in quote unquote growth areas will certainly be increased. But right now, I have to say that I don't fully understand where this is going or where the language may end up. Tim and Jeff may have a better insight from the MMA perspective. Once it's resolved, we would be happy to address it all with you. I think it is a good time to contemplate update.
And I think a point to add, Tim had mentioned that from the manager population in Maine, it seems like that population is opposed to this. And then also MMA has come out, I think, pretty strongly opposed to this bill.
Well, one of the big issues, Madam Chair, if I may, exactly what what Jeff and Jack were talking about, is how fast this bill came to fruition and suddenly popped up in everybody's emails like, hey, no, we'll get it done. And then it became emergency legislation, then they're asking us to And people are like, then there's amendments flying off the shelf, and it's like, in 2 weeks, we didn't have time to grapple with everything, to get everything, even those in the know. Same with you, it was changing every day.
Yep.
And, the managers, eventually all the managers, the majority of them, there's a few, Lewiston seemed to jump on board, but a few others, most of them in MMA said, this is way too fast and there's too much in there, it's just like, Tiffany said, there's just so much in this, and it came so fast, and it's hard to understand all, and to even begin to say how it would impact us, I couldn't even begin to tell you.
Any other discussion? All right, we have a motion and a second on the table. All those in favor? Any opposed? Nay. Motion fails 4-0. Hope I got that right, Barbara.
0-4.
0 fails 0-4. Thank you. Okay. All right. That wraps up our new business council member comments. Jeff, will you first?
Just in this exact scenario, and with my involvement with LPC, there's a lot of stuff that's coming through, as Representative Roberts mentioned. There's so much that's coming through the state, and like we've seen with marijuana, the state made a ruling, and the towns and municipalities have to adapt to it. I'm not sure if it needs to be an official motion, but I would like to create a system where where the town council is looking at the state throughout the year as they're in session, so that we can be abreast of the situation before it's too, within the week that we're trying to vote on it. There's so much happening right now with ADUs, with Airbnb, things like that.
EDU.
Accessory
ADUs,
dwelling units.
like a
Yep.
mother-in-law apartment
Yep,
type thing. Airbnb type things that impact, that will have the potential to be a statewide broad brush and might impact how we're guiding our town government. And I think that if we could put a system in place, even if it's to a point of working with what MMA puts out and putting a standing agenda item that we could address, or at least look at things. I don't have it all fleshed out, but I'd definitely be willing to stand up and write something up and do something so that we have at least something to work on, or to be better prepared for our future. The state is going to be they're doing their job, and it's going to impact us in some ways, and I'd rather be at the front end than the back end.
So normally, this would come out of my, I watch every day, that's my job, I'm in communication with MMA. Problem is, I'm so busy here, trying to hire a police chief, trying to do this, I saw this on my focus, it came in, but I looked at it and I said, well, this seems like an emergency bill, blah, blah, blah. I read whatever, I can either pass stuff on, usually I get everything from MMA, but I don't know how to get that. I'm trying to filter out what doesn't, I can put hundreds of things on your plate and we could make meetings. I could make meetings last a week hours of the morning, folks. I don't know what you're, this came across my desk 2 weeks ago. But, so did the community guidance people, and people coming into I only got my time in my day, and I try to prioritize to you folks what I can give you.
Yeah.
I don't know how I can help you, but, I'm in contact with them every day. I see all the postings on the list managers listserv. But Jeff's right, there's hundreds and hundreds of pages of information come across my desk every day of topics that,
I'm just saying, I agree. I think that you have day-to-day what's happening on Main Street stuff that you guys are dealing with. That's God knows what's gonna happen down on 236 that you
Right.
guys are gonna walk out of this office and have to deal with, you know?
Right.
And that's why I personally feel like we all have access to the MMA stuff. And if we are able to, they do a very good job at least summarizing. If we could put that on a list so that we're at least summarizing, and then you're right here, we can say, what the heck is this thing? You know, and then use your expertise at that time. I'm not sure how that would work, but I don't know that.
I can pull stuff off that I think's pertinent to you and send it to you. And say, here you go, and give you like a summary. I mean, like I say, I saw this, but I read it. And when I started to watch all the town managers, and they started to get really deep into it, and I was just thinking, you know, until it popped up, you know, you popped up on it. I'm happy to do what I can, but again, my priority is, like you say, first here, Main Street first.
Right.
But I do watch that, and I do stuff that if I see, I think is a red flag. I mean, I'm willing to try to figure out how I can do it without flooding you with, if I started sending copy and paste, you guys are gonna tell me to stop it.
Yeah,
Because I get, and I was telling Jen, some days I don't answer I can't clear my email, like just, some days it's 200 emails that come into my box, you know, it's just. I don't know how to make that distinction for you.
Oh, I take my hat off to anybody serving in Augusta. I don't know how many bills have come across your desk, Tiffany, and I remember going up when Bobby Evers and there were these stacks of paper with no administrative support. Well, what's the ratio? 1 to 20, I think, in terms of ad support? I don't-
1 to 15 right now.
15. Wow, we made a lot of progress, but there's no, and it just stacks and stacks and stacks. How many bills, Tiffany, have you looked at? How many bills have been proposed? I don't want to put you on the spot of what you looked at, but how many have been proposed in this session?
This session, they only allowed 1,500 in.
God, only.
So, yeah, and so, I don't know how you do it. I really don't. And so, as far as, I think this is a great example. I mean, this rose up, somehow or other we dealt with it. And I thank everybody for everything that's been chimed in on it. Had a, basically, for me, it was like, I had a day to kind of do some stuff with it, and we responded. And I think those are the things that I would like to respond to, and thank you for serving on the LPC, and thank you for Kate Dufour and everybody up at MMA who do their job that we hire. In other words, we pay our dues and they get back to us. But what I want to see is the hot button stuff. And I think that's kind of what's flowing through. I mean, when marijuana was getting going, yeah, okay, let's go. We'll listen to, Freddie Flaherty talk about, their seminar and someone else's seminar about what's going on, about what things mean. And all those acronyms, we got to learn about that. So I think it's just a question of reaction and what's hot, because I think to do even a monthly review of what's in the docket would be too much.
Yeah, I'm going to prepare something, because I don't find that is an adequate answer for the town, because I do think that, and I'll present it to you guys to be able to see. And then let me just flesh it out, and then, but I agree, I don't want to put more work on counselors of the future. But I will require counselors of the future when I'm sitting in the blue chairs, and to be up to date, and I don't want to sit here and hear my counselor saying, shoot, I missed that. There's a bill that just got passed on land bank. That's going to impact us, good and bad. And we don't know anything about it because we weren't talking about it. I want to be able to arm us as counselors and as towns and to be able to have better accuracy. And I think there might be a way to do it. So let me think of a way to kind of do that and prep us a little bit.
And anything you can do, certainly if any of you have questions, just send me an email. I'll flush out, like today, I ran around grabbing the stuff, trying to get the stuff out. Jack kind of hit me up on it and I kind of flushed it out. I'm glad to, I work for you. That's what my job is. I'll get you any information, through managers, I'll get you opinions, I'll get you MMA legal. I'll do all that stuff for you. But just understand, I've got all the other stuff I'm trying to take through too, so I may see it, I may not see it.
I just want to be able to be asking the question, because if you don't know that,
The question, I can't answer.
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just, anything I can do to help with that, I will.
Right.
That's, me and my staff, that's what we're here for.
So I would say like if there's, take a stab at whatever it is you want to do, Jeff, but I think that like tonight is a good example of like these big hot button ones, like if Tim or Jeff or Tiffany or any of us like get word of anything that we feel like kind of needs to come to the level that this one did, like, let me know and we'll put it on the agenda for us to do exactly what we did
Yeah.
tonight.
Because we have, I'm sorry, we have the opportunity to help mold what we have, to mold what the state is doing. If we stand up in South Berwick and South Berwick's representative and senator are saying, hey, this is what my people are saying, it has a lot of value, we don't have to be impacted, we can impact. This is where I think we have a spot, so.
Yeah, thanks.
No, thank you.
Said my piece. Thank you.
Okay. The only thing I want to say is that, this past couple of weeks, I got to go to the Marshwood High School Spring Musical with no masks.
Yay.
Actors or the people, and it was wonderful. That's all. All right. We don't need a motion to adjourn because we're going to be going to an executive session, but we need a motion to go into executive session.
Madam Chair, I will move to go into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA, section 405.6C, real estate.
I'll second.
Motion in a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
And
Motion passes 4-0.
and there'll be no other business other than adjournment.
Yep.
After executive session.
Yep, thank you. All right, thank you everyone who joined us tonight. Let's shut off the recording.